My dad shamed my career and disowned me, but came begging for $120,000 after my brother ruined the family business. Hey everyone. Before we kick off today's video, I've got a favor to ask. We've noticed our channel isn't getting as much love lately, and subscribing is one of the easiest ways you can help us out. It's quick, free, and it means we can keep bringing you awesome content. Your support really means a lot, so let's work together to keep this channel growing. Thanks a bunch. Now, let's dive into the video. Hey everyone, it's Henry here. I run a pet care business chain in New York, and yep, I'm 30. My job's pretty stable and pays the bills comfortably. I've got a cozy little apartment, a car, and a warm, sunny office where I sometimes work late into the night. Some might say I'm living the dream. I'm backed by a family I'm proud of and love. But, if I'm being real, I'm talking about the family I left behind exactly a year ago. There I was, at this big family gathering. And out of nowhere, I found myself saying, I don't belong here anymore. It was a tough call to make. You know how it is, when you're caught between just quietly going along and feeling let down, you have to make a choice. Keep plodding along or shake things up. I'm sharing this not to throw shade or justify anything, but as a reminder to myself, to really live, you need to be ready to give up what you thought you couldn't. I walked away from my fam on Easter Sunday last year, and honestly, I haven't looked back. After a lot of gloomy spring rains, the sun finally came out. I remember driving out of Manhattan early, watching folks headed to church, feeling kinda relieved that my family was all together again without me. I'm always the one who's early to everything, like 15 minutes early is my thing, and this time was no exception. When I pulled up, the house was buzzing with chatter and laughter. More people than usual, some familiar faces from close and far, but names? Yeah, kinda hazy. Mom dropped a hint that Dad had something major to announce, but she didn't spill the beans. Mom's got a sweet tooth for chocolate mousse cake from a small Brooklyn bakery, so I set one down on the kitchen counter. Lately, I've been bringing little treats like a bottle of wine, a box of fancy pastries, or flowers she loved. These small gestures might not have bridged the gap between us, but I hope they'd keep a little bit of warmth alive. About 20 minutes in, the party got rolling as usual. Cheers, grilled meat and potatoes, the typical chatter about real estate, stocks, and kids' schools. I just sat there, eating and listening from my corner, not really part of it but not feeling like I needed to be. Then, my dad stood up, raised his wine glass, and used his big news voice, "Everyone, let's quiet down. We've got something to share." And just like that, the room went silent. Our family has come to a decision. Starting today, everything, the company, the shares, the real estate, goes to Mateo. Yeah, that hit hard. Everyone clapped and cheered on cue, like they'd rehearsed it or something. Mom's eyes were shining, like she'd found her life's purpose. Mateo's been with the company for 5 years, and he'll be the one to carry the torch forward, she beamed. I sat there, eyes on my glass of water, feeling its chill but it didn't numb the ache in my chest. Waves of applause were like hammers pounding into my chair. Nobody asked what I thought. No one looked my way. Nobody said, "What about Henry?" I was there, but they acted like my part in the story had ended. Sure, I knew they liked Mateo, but I didn't see this coming. Mateo's my younger brother by 2 years. We weren't always joined at the hip growing up, but we got along. As a kid, I believed in fairness and thought my parents did too. Everything was always split, 2 cakes, 2 candy bags, 2 almost identical bikes, just in different colors. When we got in trouble, it was the same punishment for both of us, no one got off easy. Like when we scribbled on the walls, we were both made to scrub them clean. No favorites. I used to think our family was fair until I was around 18. I remember one evening in September, I told my dad I wanted to study veterinary medicine. I had picked a school, got a partial scholarship, and just needed some support to get started. I expected questions about my goals or at least a nod of encouragement. Instead, he sat there, arms crossed, eyes cold, like I'd said something disgraceful. "I'm not putting a single dime into that career. If that's what you want, you're on your own." That was it. My idea of family changed just like that. I didn't get it at the time. How could a career choice make me feel like a traitor? It took me years to see that my choices didn't fit their plans. After that, I wasn't the golden child. Slowly, Mateo took that spot. After telling my dad about vet school, things just drifted apart. It was quiet and gradual, not from angry words or arguments. I just became more silent. Maybe that's what you pay for stepping off the path they set for you. Even though we were drifting, I was always there when they needed me. I sent Mom roses for Mother's Day. When Dad needed a new AC in the summer, I helped out. I showed up whenever the company had rough patches. I never kept score. Maybe that's why it stung so much. The betrayal felt like it came from the person I never expected. So, let me tell you about something wild that happened with my dad. Flashback to about a year ago, he called me up late at night. His voice was shaky like he'd been wrestling with himself before dialing. I still remember every word. The company was on the brink of disaster because a big deal fell through last minute, and they needed $80,000 to keep things afloat. I thought about putting together a formal statement or outlining my contributions, but he shot that down quick. He just told me, when your mom and I are gone, you'll still have a piece of the company. This is a family business, after all. It felt reassuring at the moment, so I didn't ask for anything else and wired the cash to the company first thing the next morning. Just his few words after a long pause was our contract. Looking back, maybe I should have gotten something in writing, but I trusted him. Fast forward to Easter last year, and my dad drops the bomb that Mateo's inheriting everything. I usually kept quiet, but this time I couldn't hold it in. I asked, "What about me?" And the room just froze. You could hear a pin drop. Everyone started whispering, like they finally realized I was even there. People were mumbling, "Yeah, what about Henry? He's Mateo's brother." The tension was thick. My mom, with her soft touch, tried to spin it, saying, "Henry, you've already got a career, a house, a car, but Mateo, he has nothing." But I just looked her in the eyes and said, "I built my life on my own from scratch. Left at 18, worked my butt off, got a scholarship, and saved every penny. Meanwhile, you guys covered all of Mateo's bills. And now you're just handing him everything?" Mateo had the nerve to chime in, saying, "Mom's right, you shouldn't be competing with me." I wasn't having it. I told him to shut it because he didn't even have the right to play that card. Then my dad slams his hand on the table and yells, "That's enough, Henry. Mateo followed the path we set, and you didn't. If you hadn't picked those filthy animals, this company would have been yours." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I shot back, "What are you talking about? Those so-called filthy animals are why I had the $80,000 to save your company in the first place. If you're so ashamed of my work, pay me back." He got all red and barked, "I'm not giving you a dime. I raised you, fed you, schooled you. Do you even know how much that cost? And now you're out cleaning up after pets. You're a disgrace." That was the last straw for me. I told him, "If that's how you feel, then we're done. Don't come looking for me." I walked out, my head held high, no regrets. Before leaving, I added, "Dad, I never asked to be born, so stop using your so-called sacrifices to guilt-trip me into your plans." That night, I got back to my place before 9, headed straight for the shower to wash away all the bitterness of that day. I spent nearly 20 minutes under the spray, feeling a bit lighter afterward. I made myself a strong cup of coffee and sat by the window, reminiscing about when I left home at 18 with just an old suitcase and some savings. Those first couple of years were rough. I lived in a tiny studio and pinched every penny to pay off my student loans. Then, one random Sunday during my 3rd year, I got this crazy idea to make a pet care video. Just for fun, I balanced my phone on some books and spoke like I was chatting with a friend. I threw it up on Facebook and YouTube, not expecting much. If someone watched it, cool, if not, oh well. So basically, things started off when I posted a video, and in just 2 days, it went totally viral. Within 48 hours, it had racked up nearly 3 million views across different platforms. I was absolutely shocked and thought my page must be glitching. But when the comments and messages started rolling in, I realized people actually cared about what I had to say. So, I made more videos. At first, my goal was just to share what I knew, but then I got my first couple of grand through ads and sponsorships. A month later, I was staring at my screen, seeing this insane number, feeling both excited and anxious, wondering, is this real life? But the numbers just kept going up. Fast forward 9 months, and I hit 1 million YouTube subscribers, and in 1 year, I had over 2 million followers across all platforms. Then, pet care brands started reaching out, wanting to collab, sponsor my videos, and send me stuff to review. That's when it hit me, this wasn't just a hobby anymore. With the support I had built up, I decided to open my own pet care store. I named it Whisker and Paw because I wanted to share the kindness and love I didn't really get growing up. The first store did way better than I could have imagined, maybe because of the community backing me or because people could tell I genuinely cared about all my customers, both the 2-legged and 4-legged ones. After a few months, I had to hire more staff, extend hours, and even started looking for a second location. A year later, we opened our second branch. 4 years down the line, Whisker and Paw had 7 locations around the city, with over 30 full-time and part-time employees, some of whom have been there since the very start. Some people joined recently, but everyone feels like part of my hand-picked family. I don't brag about my success, especially not to my family. An industry mentor once told me, never flaunt your success, not even to your parents. I didn't get it back then, thought I should be able to share my good deeds. But as I got older, it made more sense. Everyone has a bit of envy, and sharing your achievements doesn't always get you admiration. It sometimes leads to people expecting financial help or ideas because, we're family. When you say no, admiration can turn into resentment. So, I kept my success to myself. Even when I went home for holidays, I'd bring pastries, gifts, and maybe a nice bottle of wine for Mom, but I never talked about money, my staff, or new projects. To them, I was just Henry, who took care of pets, and honestly, I liked it that way. Then one day, about 6 months after Easter dinner, I stopped calling or visiting. My parents, Charles and Margaret Walker, didn't reach out either. No check-ins, no random calls. It was like I disappeared on purpose. And honestly, I wasn't sad about it. Waking up without checking my phone for a message from Mom felt like a weight had lifted. I could sit quietly in my apartment, sipping late-night coffee, and work without that nagging family guilt. It was the first time in years I felt truly free. But then, about 6 months ago, my phone rang one Saturday morning as I was pouring myself a second cup of coffee. It was Dad. Seeing his name on the screen froze me in place. My thumb hovered over the decline button, but I didn't press it. For a second, I thought maybe they were calling to apologize, that they'd had time to think things over. Maybe I still had a sliver of hope. When I finally answered, my dad's voice was straight to the point. No small talk. He said, "Henry, the company's in serious trouble. Mateo signed the wrong contract, and now we're looking at $120,000 in damages. Can you help us, for the family's reputation, for the Walker name?" Without hesitation, I replied, $80,000 was more than enough, Dad. If you want my help, start by paying that back. Silence on the other end. I imagined him looking either furious or disappointed, but I didn't care. I added, and if you're just trying to save the family name, remember it never really stood up for me. I hung up, leaving them to deal with their $120,000 problem. I thought rejecting my dad would make them leave me be, but I was wrong. The next morning, around 7 a.m., my doorbell rang persistently. It was my parents and Mateo. I didn't invite them in. I stood at the door, making it clear this wasn't some shared space. Knowing exactly why they were there, I calmly said, "If you're here for $120,000, turn around. I'm not helping." My words echoed down the quiet hallway even though I spoke softly. My mom backed away, her eyes a mix of stress and maybe disappointment or rage. With nowhere else to go, she tried to sound gentle but firm, saying, "Henry, you have a..." So, there I was, facing my folks who seemed pretty desperate. They were talking about how the pet store chain was about to go under and how $120,000 wasn't much to me. Mateo took a step closer, and his normally loud voice was barely a whisper as he pleaded, "Henry, just this once." But I just stood there, holding onto the doorframe as if letting go would mean losing my grip on everything. After a moment of silence, I finally spoke up, "Leave before I call the cops." My dad's face turned to stone, and Mom tried to say something but I cut her off. I repeated myself louder to make it crystal clear. I was done with them and their mess. They had to deal with their own choices, favoritism, and silence, Mateo included. If the business goes down, it's not my problem to fix. Once they left, I sat back down with my cold coffee, thinking about other things. But then a thought hit me, how did they even know I had 7 stores? I'd never talked about it, not even at family gatherings when things were still okay. They weren't following me online, so how did the secret get out? That's when it dawned on me, YouTube. My pet care videos must have been the giveaway. Somebody must have shared a link, and the idea of them snooping gave me chills. Not because I was scared of them finding out, but because I knew how they acted when they saw a chance to exploit something. I grabbed my phone and sent a clear message to both Mom and Mateo, "If you do anything to damage my reputation or business, I'll sue." I meant it. Despite the warning, Mateo went ahead and blasted me all over Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram the next day. I didn't catch it right away, but friends started sending me screenshots. Suddenly, I had employees and the media on my back. He made it sound like I'd turned my back on my bankrupt family and kicked them out like strangers. Of course, he painted me as the awful brother who'd always mistreated them. The whole thing was twisted, and people were eating it up like some juicy tabloid story. Business took a hit. Clients were canceling their appointments, and our social media was flooded with hate. It was chaos, and I knew I had to act fast to save my stores. That's when I contacted Brian, my old buddy and lawyer. Without calling, I texted him saying I needed to see him ASAP. He squeezed me in between meetings, and when I got to his bright office, I laid out everything, Mateo's posts, the impact on my revenue, everything. After hearing me out, Brian just leaned back, gave a little smirk, and said, "You've just hit the jackpot, Henry." I was confused, so I asked what he meant. He explained that we had a solid case against Mateo for all the damage he'd done. With the evidence I had, we were looking at a nice payout. Feeling a weight lift off my shoulders, I handed over my paperwork and told Brian to draft the case. By that afternoon, I'd given him power of attorney. I felt no remorse. If Mateo wanted to play dirty, I was ready to take legal action. A few weeks later, Mateo's lawyer reached out wanting to talk settlement. No surprise there, they only tried to play nice after losing control. Brian called me in and, with a little file in hand, casually mentioned, "Your family wants to make a deal." Looking at him, Brian didn't say a word when he opened the file. He slid the top page over to me, then continued, "They want to sell the company, but they'd like to stick around as internal advisors." I glanced over the page from my seat. Everything looked fine, technically. Nothing seemed off, but I was simply over it. I calmly said, "Tell them I'm not interested." Brian gave a slight nod, and that was that. I stood up, grabbed my coat, and told him, "I'm not buying the company, and I'm definitely not hiring family as consultants. I'm not going to save a family just to be treated like a piggy bank." 3 months later, the trial began after Mateo had uploaded some fraudulent info. Even though the Manhattan District Courthouse was close to my place, I left early to have some time to chill in the car, clear my head, and remind myself that this was about justice, not revenge. When I got to the courtroom, there was Mateo with his lawyer, looking nervous and trying to keep it together. Gone was the arrogant, contemptuous vibe from our previous arguments. His eyes were mostly on the floor. Brian kicked things off by listing all the losses: canceled contracts, store closures, dwindling income, and employee compensation. Everything was backed up with official paperwork, no exaggerations. Mateo's team argued the message was personal and unintentional, but nobody believed that nearly 30,000 shares were a misunderstanding. I kept calm as the judge read the summary judgment. The defendant, Mateo Walker, is found liable for significant commercial damages and must compensate the plaintiff, Henry Walker, $248,000. Silence followed the verdict. I got up, not even bothering to look at Mateo. I walked out, feeling like I'd finally put a period at the end of a messy chapter I never wanted to write. I wasn't doing this to make a point, I just needed to stop being a pushover. After the case, I heard Mateo had to sell the family company and his house to pay up. I didn't dig into the details, I didn't care anymore. They ignored my warning and chose their path, and now face the consequences. The next half year was peaceful enough. But 3 days ago, bright and early on a gloomy Saturday, the doorbell rang at 7 a.m., the same time they once asked for $120,000. I opened the door to find my mom, looking disheveled and clutching her bag like it was keeping her together. She was quiet at first, then said in a husky whisper, "Your father's in the hospital. It's serious this time. The treatment's about $20,000. I know I was wrong, but please, help us just this once." I just stood there, not feeling angry, just empty. I told her softly, "To me, you and Dad died when you let Mateo wreck my career," and said nothing. "I don't give money to ghosts." She froze, but I didn't. With steady breath, I said, "Ask your heir." And I closed the door to make it clear it wouldn't open again. Some folks might think I'm being mean or heartless now. But before you judge, know this: I did go to the hospital later that day after my mom left. I didn't visit my dad's room. Instead, I called the information desk for an update. My mom had been truthful. My dad was hospitalized, and his treatment was $20,000, just like she said. I nearly pulled out my credit card, but then remembered Easter the year before, when they publicly handed everything over to Mateo and asked me to understand. Confused, I called a couple of contacts the next morning and found out that my parents still own their home, worth about $400,000, free and clear. They can easily sell it to cover medical bills. I didn't pay the hospital. I sent my mom a text, "You still have the house. Sell it for Dad's treatment." She didn't reply. Maybe she was too attached to the house, or it was always meant for Mateo. Either way, I wasn't stepping in again. Hey, just a heads up, but I'm totally over trying to please everyone. Whether they want to sell or keep whatever it is, that's their call. I've made my own choices and I'm not planning on going back. Honestly, after everything that's happened, I don't expect much from my family anymore. I still believe in the idea of family, but I've learned that family isn't always about the folks you're born to. Sometimes it's about the people you choose to surround yourself with. I used to think that if I just worked hard enough and made enough sacrifices, they'd see it and appreciate it. But some people only realize what you did for them after you're done helping. I don't want this to be a sad or angry tale. I'm sharing because I hope someone out there gets it, someone who's been through the same. It's tough being expected to always be strong just because you've managed to do well in life. And hey, you're not a bad person for saying no. You're not selfish for turning down repeated mistreatment. Sometimes you have to put boundaries on kindness. And if you're the only one holding on to a one-sided relationship, maybe it's time to let it go. Before I wrap this up, I'd love to hear from you guys who have stuck around to listen. Was I wrong for walking away from a family that saw me as a second option and left me hanging when I needed them most? Was it too harsh of me to refuse to help someone who had already turned their back on me, especially when I was at my lowest? Thanks for sticking through this crazy family saga with me. If you're into family stories, hit subscribe and turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on the next drama-filled adventure.